Hi, it's Angie from Canterbury Trails Farm. Today I'm going to show you how to loom knit a ghost for Halloween. It's just using this simple hat technique, and I'm using the 5-inch diameter small loom that comes with the standard plastic loom sets that you can get at Walmart or whatever. Since you're watching project videos, I'm assuming that you know at least the basic hat technique. If you don't, go check out my hat video and I'll show you actually how to loom knit and actually make the stitches, and we talk about the hat and everything. And that's all you need for this. We're not making a cuff on this. I just loom knitted approximately 12 inches of a long tube. Same technique that you would use for a tube sock with no heel or just a long hat. The height of your ghost is going to be determined by how long your tube is. The width of your ghost will be determined by the diameter of your loom. So if you want a really big ghost for like a stuffed animal, you're going to have to experiment with different looms and different lengths. But this is going to make just a smaller ghost that I can sit next to a pumpkin. You could also hang it from, nylon thread or nylon wire or just yarn or whatever you want to do. But I'm just going to sit mine. It's going to be like a little stuffed ghost. He's going to sit by a pumpkin or a jack-o'-lantern. So I've knitted 12 inches and I'm going to take it off the loom now. Okay, when you get it, just do it just like you would a hat, and you're just going to gather that middle section. Now I just used some white Karen 4, that's what I thought it was. I usually have 4 is usually what I do. 4, the medium weight yarn is what I'm using. If you want it super thick, just use two skeins or just both ends or whatever of the yarn. You're not going to have if you watch the pumpkin video, we talked about how, if you used a dark color, you would need to use other fabric to make a tube inside, or you would need to make it thick so your fiber fill didn't show through. But in this case, we're using all white, so we don't really have to worry about that. So I'm just gonna, I just stitched it tight, gathered it, cut that off. Now I have like a long tube or a long sock. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stuff the ghost. And I'm going to do it sort of loosely because I want to be able to shape the bottom of him. And I'm also going to put a little bit more stuffing in the bottom than I will as I work my way up, because again, we're going to squish that bottom to make it so he stands up better. I'm trying to get a round shape down here at the bottom too. That's what I'm aiming for. And you just play with it and sort of determine, like how, if you think feels stuffed well, if you think you need to add any more, and the height, how tall you want it. I just need a little bit more here on the top. We're going to roll these edges under as we sew it closed. Now, because I'm sewing in an open weave type fabric, I'm not going to be able to do a knot. So I'm just going to stick my yarn through the top here. I'm just going to tie it. So I'm going to be able to gather it, because I'm going to gather this top the same way I gathered the bottom. Just going to go around. I'm just going to loosely gather it like a purse. I'm going to push the raw edges underneath before I pull it tight. Ouch, poked myself. And then I'm going to start pulling it. And as you can see, as I'm poking those edges in, it becomes like a sort of like a puckered spot. But there's no loose or raw knitting edges there because it's all been tucked in. I'm just going to make a few stitches to close that hole at the top. great thing about working with yarn is it's pretty forgiving about covering up any kind of less than stellar stitching. So when you get it all secure, now if I wanted to, I could just leave this to hang it with later, but I'm not going to be hanging my ghost, so I'm cutting it off. Alright, so I have like a little blobby guy, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to squish him here, and I want to get him so he stands up well. One good way to do that is underneath is to sort of mold it using that center gather as like the part that you want to push up. If you push in and up around and mold it like this, it will help him have a better base to sit on. Now to do the head, I'm just going to sort of see where I want his head to be. You could sort of leave it like this if you wanted to, but I like to have a defined little head here. And I'm just going to stick it in there, and I'm just going to tie this tightly. And then I'm going to wrap it around the other side and tie it again. I've tied off his little head there, and I'm just going to cut my strings. And now I have a little guy. If you ever made toilet tissue or Kleenex ghost when you were little, then you know sort of what you're doing here. I'm just going to sort of mold his head a little bit here. Alright, now you can do his eyes and mouth two different ways. Well, three different ways. You could actually glue googly eyes on. You could sew black buttons, 3 black buttons, like 2 eyes and a round mouth button. Or you could use yarn and just sew it on there. But I'm just going to cut circles for his eyes. And again, you'll need to play with, how big you want. And I may do a mouth, so I'm going to do a circle for a mouth I'm just using black craft felt. You can even buy the craft felt with adhesive on the back that peels off. That makes it really easy if you don't want to mess with glue, but I just have some white school glue here. Okay, now I'm just going to look and see if I like how it looks. So here's how it would look if he just had eyes. So let me see, my circle turned out bigger than I wanted. All right. That'll work. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the back. The good thing about using craft glue opposed to hot glue is if you don't like it, you can just rip it right off and reposition it without ripping off your fibers and everything that's going to happen if you're using a hot glue gun. And there he is. That's it. That's your ghost. And you, of course, can, whatever shapes you cut is going to determine if he's spookier or, more of a cartoon. However you want him to look. You could put, if you wanted to, if you got real creative, you could leave a little hole at the bottom instead of sewing it completely closed, and you could put one of the flickering little LED lights that turn on with the button battery. You could pack the fiberfill loosely inside and insert that light, and then he would glow and light. But you have to make sure you leave a little hole so you could reach the little button up there. And there he is. There's our ghost. See, it's a simple, easy project. It takes about an hour. I mean, the longest part is actually doing your loom knitting, and that didn't take very long because I'm using a medium weight yarn, and I'm using a small loom, and it's a loose weave and a loose knit. You're just doing it very quickly, so it turns out really fast. So hour or 2 hours if you don't have a consecutive hour to sit down. Who does? I'm up and down all the time. So that's the little ghost, and it's a cute little Halloween project, and if you've already made the pumpkins, you can make the little ghost to stand next to the pumpkins, and that's really cute. So thanks for joining us today at Canterbury Farm.